Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Morning.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us all. Do you mind closing?
Yes.
I'm Clarissa Rodriguez, Chair of the New York State Workers' Compensation Board. Today's full board meeting is being webcast live for our members of the public, so welcome. It is also being facilitated by American Sign Language interpreters. Thank you so much for joining us, our interpreters. And I now have the honor of calling the 1037th meeting of the full board to order. Madam Secretary, will you please call attendance?
Vice Chair Foster,
Here.
Board Member Higgins,
Here.
Board Member Williams,
Here.
Board Member Hall,
Here.
Board Member Crane,
Here.
Board Member Stasko,
Here.
Board Member Tavares,
Here.
Board Member Caginelli,
Here.
Board Member Zalam,
Here.
Board Member Delgado,
Here.
Board Member Perez.
Here.
Madam Chair, Board Member Logan has requested to be excused.
Yes. And Vice Chair Foster is joining us
remotely.
Yes, thank you. Board members, may I please have a motion to approve the absence of Board Member Lauren Lobin?
So move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay, hearing none. Board members, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Seeing and hearing none, I also approve, and that motion is passed. Thank you. Agenda item 1, approval of the October 22nd, 2024 meeting minutes. Board members, you've all received a copy of the October meeting minutes for your review. Are there any questions or need for discussion? Okay, hearing none, may I please have a motion to approve the board meeting minutes for October 2024?
Madam Chair, this is Board Member Caginelli, and I move that we approve the October 26th, 2024 board meeting minutes.
Thank you, Board Member Caginelli. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Stasko. Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay, board members, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I am also a yes. That motion is passed. Thank you. Agenda item 2, Office of General Counsel's Departmental Report. General Counsel Heather McMaster will now present the Office of the General Counsel's Departmental Report for the month of October.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the board. In October of 2024, in the Office of General Counsel, the Adjudication Division held 15,271 hearings, 9,883 cases were resolved at the hearing, and 287 reserved decisions were issued. There were also 1,550 waiver agreements finalized. In the Administrative Review Division, 1,067 applications were received, 998 were processed, and there are currently 7,957 applications pending. In Legal Affairs, there were 108 full board review applications received, 78 were processed, and there are currently 194 pending. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Board members, are there any questions or need for discussion? Okay, hearing none, may I please have a motion to accept the Office of General Counsel's Departmental Report?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Board Member Hall, and I move that we accept the the adjudication, Office of General Counsel Heather McMaster's report.
Thank you, Board Member Hall. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Crane. Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay, hearing none. Board members, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed? Hearing none, I am also a yes. That motion is passed. License applications. Associate Attorney Heather Justice will now present licensing applications for the prior month.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, board members and colleagues. You have before you the recommendations from the assigned board panel regarding the licensing applications listed in Part 3 of today's agenda pursuant to Workers' Compensation Law, Section 53D, AmTrust North America, Inc., QO Susan Howe for a 3-year renewal, and number 2, Markel Service, Inc., new QO Todd M. Jones, Esquire, 3-year renewal. I present these recommendations to the board for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Board members, are there any questions or need for discussion? Hearing none, may I please have a motion to accept the recommendations as presented?
Board Member Williams, I make a motion that we accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Board Member Williams. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Tavares. Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay, hearing none. Board members, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed? I am also a yes, that motion is passed. Thank you, Board members. Legal Appeals, Heather McMaster will now present the recommendations concerning decisions by the Appellate Division.
Madam Chair. With respect to items 4A through 4P, it is the recommendation of the Office of General Counsel that the decisions of the Appellate Division, 3rd Department, be adopted as the decisions of the Board.
Thank you, Heather. Board members, are there any questions or need for discussion? Okay. May I have a motion to accept the recommendations of the Office of General Counsel?
So moved.
Thank you, Board Member
Perez.
Sorry. I knew that, actually. Is there a second?
Board Member Hull, second.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Hull. Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay, hearing none, board members, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed? I am also a yes, that motion is passed. Thank you all. Agenda item 6, there are no mandatory cases on full board review this month. So we'll move on to our discretionary full board review cases. I now turn this portion of the agenda over to Vice Chair Frida Foster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the cases listed in item 6 on your agenda, it has been recommended that full board review be granted. Those cases are 6A, matter of New York City Transit Authority, 6B, matter of Department of Citywide Administration, and 6C, matter of Price Chopper. I move to refer these cases back to the respective panels for further consideration.
Thank you, Vice Chair Frida Foster. Is there a second?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Board Member Cagliari, and I second that motion.
Thank you. Does anyone need to be recused from any of these cases?
No.
Okay. Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay, hearing none. Board members, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed? Okay, hearing none. I am also a yes, that motion is passed. Thank you, board members. Agenda item 7, is there any other business? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to our guest speaker today. I'd now like to introduce to you all and welcome today's presenter, the board's advocate for injured workers, Joe Cavalcante. Please join me in welcoming Joe, who will give us some insight about the details surrounding the workers' compensation system, including the rights, responsibility, and resources available to both injured workers and business owners across New York State. Joe will be giving a presentation that's similar to what folks may have heard if they attended our annual conference this year in October, with a little bit more detail about the claims process. Thank you, Joe, for being here. Take it away.
Okay. Good morning, and good morning to Vice Chair Foster and board members, and colleagues, and to any in the public who are watching us this morning. We had a conference last month where both Chair Rodriguez and Executive Director Steve Scotti shared a great amount of system data during their remarks. We had a detailed section on claim data all set, but we ultimately decided to save it because of the length of it, and it would have been additional time, and the relative complexity of that data for that audience. However, it's great data, and it's the kind of information everyone on the board can easily absorb. So the chair has given me the honor of sharing it with everyone today. So this is what we would have shared that day. This is not Joe. These are system statistics about.
Is it on? Did you hit on?
It's not on.
I will go for you.
Oh,
Just
there
do
you
next slide. Maybe
Oh, you
it's
did
not.
it?
I did it.
Thank you, Laura. MVP, Laura Inglis. So we're going to look at some general information about injured workers, including wage data, including wage data that we collected for the first time. You're going to see some things now that you've not seen before. we're going to present the data in a way that we haven't presented it before. We're going to begin with an overview of the system with a number of incidents that we've confronted in 2023, and then we're going to segment them into complete claims and incomplete claims. And we're looking at claims that received their first indemnity benefits in the year 2023. This is going to give us a true snapshot of how the system is functioning today. That was the chair's intent for that forum, was to show the system as it works today. We're going to sort the claims into 7 familiar claim types, because then we can report on the important events within those claim types. So you're going to see this reported in a new way. For example, this month the board announced that we have processed 2 million PARs, prior authorization requests, through Onboard. 2 million. We're now going to show you where they are. We're now going to show you which claim types are getting PARs, and on average, how many, and so forth. So we have this perspective here on detail now. And that's just one of these data points we're going to show. And then we're going to close by recapping controversies, because they're significant in terms of energies expended. And then finally, the moment when you all enter the picture, this is new, appealed claims. We'll show you where the appeals are. So let's begin with the landscape for injured workers and their experience in this system that's designed to give them health care and to pay cash benefits after an incident at work. Out of the nearly 20 million people in New York, 9.8 million were working at the end of 2023. For claims with the 2023 injury year, there were 2.81 injuries per 100 workers in our state. You can see on this slide that, not surprisingly, there is a bit of a dip from the 2019 to 2020 pandemic, but then the trend line comes back up to the historic. So last 2023, about 2.81%, if you want to convert it to percentages. This is new. We're reporting the median wage of our injured workers against the statewide median wage. Everyone will recall from statistics, the median is the point where half a population is above, half a population is below. It's the midpoint. It's very different from an average. So the median wage of injured workers with claims established in 23 was about $55,500 a year, or $1067 a week. The $1067 a week, just for some general context, that's just below what the maximum benefit was at that time, just for general context. However, you can compare what workers in our system are earning on a median basis to what the statewide median wage was at the same time. Statewide was 5% higher at about $58,600. This is just a general context. Here we see what's called nature of injury. These 5 are the top 5 injuries, and they are 78% of all the injuries in established claims in 2023. So there's strains and contusions and sprains and tears and fractures and lacerations. Now let's look at the big picture with respect to claims. For 2023, our baseline year here, we assembled about 267,000 claims. So that's how many incidents there were in the system. The overwhelming majority of these instances were reported by payers, but 12% were reported by workers on the employee claim form, or the C3. That worker filing rate has been constant for the last several years. A claim is considered complete when the board receives a medical report on the one hand and a notice of incident on the other. And the notice can come from the employer on what's called a FROI, or the worker on a C3. 61% of all the claims assembled in 2023 are complete. That totals about 163,000. Now, this data was pulled less than 2 months ago, and just to note, over time, claims do move from incomplete status to complete status as more documents arrive. The incomplete claims are in our files. Those 100, 300, 4,000, they're in our files, but they don't see the type of activity I'm now going to report because they're incomplete. We try to get those claims completed, but we do need the participation of employers and payers, and especially providers, in completing those claims. So this is just a reminder that if anyone is obligated to report, please do it. Anything that any of us can do to help complete these claims is going to create a better functioning system. And of course, by law, workers cannot be retaliated against or discriminated against for reporting an incident. Now, with respect to the complete claims from 2023, 70% of the time, all the injured worker needed was medical care. We call these claims medical onlys because the only benefit paid was that medical care. They're payable, but the worker hasn't lost enough time to create an indemnity payment at that moment. These claims, the medical onlys now, they tend to have far less activity per claim than those that pay indemnity benefits. So we're now going to focus on a different subset of claims. We shall now review the claims that received indemnity for the first time in 2023. Now, this is the new way of looking at data. On the left, you can see there are 7 types of claims that receive lost wage or indemnity payments. Sorting the claims in this manner allows us to drill down into the benefits being provided and to also see the different types of activity occurring in the system. These 7 claim types with their indemnity payments, they receive the most activity. So we're going to see where the system is expending its energy and its efforts, and then we'll also fulfill what the chair wished. We will be getting a sense of the different aspects of the worker's experience accessing medical care and lost wages. And of course, this will also show the activity of the payers and the attorneys and the providers and everyone else as well. So we pinpointed claims that were in these statuses for the first time in 2023. We captured all their historic activity up to September 22nd of this year. That's when we did this poll, in order to more accurately show what happens to these claims during their life cycle. We're not just interested in like 1 year of data. We're interested in what happens to claims during their life cycle. And we'll walk through the one claim type at a time. And we're going to begin with the temporary total disability claims. Then we'll move into other ones. But this is our biggest subset now. And these are the people who are 100% disabled on a temporary basis. This pool of claims, they got their first indemnity last year. Now, let's start with how long they spent in temporary total status. You can see on the left, that large one, 85% of these claims were in temp total status for 6 months or less. And you can see on the other end, almost 3% got 2 years or more of benefits. Now, this is the table you'll see a few times. This is our largest subset. Of these nearly 27,000 claims, the first thing we're seeing is 16.9% of them enjoyed 21A status, colloquially known as pay without prejudice. So for just a moment, I'd like to just reiterate the rules on 21A, which are that the payers may not simply pay the minimum comp rate. We announced this about 14 months ago, that payments must conform to the medical reports in the board file, and information in the payer's possession concerning wages. And this is the general practice, but it's worth it sometimes to reiterate. So thanks to everyone who is compliant with this. Now, moving across this table, 4 out of 5 of these claims did not have a hearing. But once they started going to hearings, they went to an average of about 3.5 hearings each. So 80% 0 hearings, 20% an average of 3.5 hearings. About 7% of the claims were controverted, which is less than last year's overall rate. About 42% of these temp total workers had legal representation. We're going to see that workers tend to retain representation as their claims progress. This is a table you will see on most of the rest of the claim types. We're now showing you the activity in a claim. These are total disabilities, so these workers are getting medical care. Just over half of them had a prior authorization request, or a PAR. I'm going to call them PARs. These cases that involve PARs had an average of almost 6 PARs each. And please note, we're counting the PAR instances. So if this was level 1, level 2, level 3, that's 1 instance, because all we care about is the treatment, not the paper in this context. Nearly a third of these claims had an average of about 2 IMEs each. So the other 2/3 had 0. 1/3 had an average of 2. Now the C8.1b, this is when payers are filing billing disputes. So this happened in just over a third of these temp total claims. It happened an average of about 12 times per claim. So this captures the controverted claims, the established claims, everything. Healthcare providers also filed payment disputes in about 1 in 7 claims. And when they were filing, they had an average of about 7 each. Now we're going to move to the temp partials. Workers who healed from temp total to temp partial, they're in this category, okay? There's no double counting. We're giving you the most recent category. Half of the workers in temp partial claims received indemnity for 6 months or less. And then on the other end, about 16%, 1 in 6, had 18 months or more of indemnity as temp partial. The temp partials had the second lowest controversy rate, 11%. That was the average controversy rate in 2023 statewide. About half of these claims had a hearing, had at least 1 hearing, and they had an average of about 4 per claim. So if you started having hearings, temp partial, you had an average of 4 or so. And representation by counsel is up now to 2/3. We're also now going to see more activity in the area of medical care and opinions. Nearly 3/4 of these workers had PARs, an average of almost 10 times each. 2/3 of workers in this group had IMEs, an average of almost 3 each. The payers disputed medical bills in around half of these claims, about 20 times on average, so the other half had 0. Treating providers filed medical billing disputes for their part in 1/4 of these claims, and for that quarter, they were at a rate of about 8 requests for review in each. We'll also see, or we will see, that payers dispute more medical bills than the treating providers do. And finally, this is temp partial. So the data also shows that payers raised the labor market attachment argument in at least 2,300 of these claims. Now we're moving into permanency. I know I'm moving quickly, but we kind of have to. Let's talk about permanency here. The claims where workers suffer permanent injuries receive the most attention in our system. Right now, we're going to consider permanent partial, permanent total. So permanent partial is here, permanent total. You'll see we're going to aggregate permanent total and total industrial disability. But right now, we're in the PPD universe. which is about 4,800 claims for 2023. Nearly all of them had hearings, on average, an average of almost 5 different exams per claim. The payers disputed medical bills in 4 out of 5, roughly, of these claims, an average of 20.5 times per. Treating providers filed billing disputes in 44% of these claims, an average of 12 times per claim. The rates and the averages for IMEs and both of these medical bill dispute categories are higher here than in the temporary claims. And of course, the board has a prominent role in resolving these disputed medical bills for treatment. Now, this chart shows where these workers were classified in terms of loss of wage earning capacity. More than a third of workers have lost 30% or less of their wage earning capacity. Those are the 2 columns on the left. The workers in orange on the right edge, everyone in orange there was classified above the 75% mark. So they're about 6.2% of the total workers who were classified. Permanent total and total industrial disability. They provide a lifetime indemnity benefit to workers at the worker's maximum rate. And total industrial disability was awarded 7 times in 2023. So we're combining those 7 with the 178 permanent totals because it's the same benefit. These claims almost always have about 11 hearings per claim over their life cycle. Only 2 of these workers were not represented. Almost every element in every table here is higher than in any other claim type, except the total number of claims, that 185, and also the controversy rate. The 24% here is not our highest rate. More than 3/4 of these workers had an average of 16 pars each. Just about every worker here went to an average of 9 IMEs. In 84% of these claims, payers disputed the medical bill, some element of the medical bill, an average of about 31 times. And in about half of the claims, the treating providers also disputed their payment, an average of about 14 times. Here now, direct comparison of the average benefit cost in dollars on the 2 claims. So this is the benefit cost. We don't have the data to show you on the payer's administrative expenses here. This is the benefit cost. The permanent total benefits are the most in our system on a dollar basis. So in a direct comparison, the medical expenses in permanent partials are almost exactly half the amount spent in permanent totals. Both are lifetime benefits, of course. The indemnity is a lifetime benefit only in the permanent totals, and these workers ultimately receive 3.5 times what workers receive in permanent partials, and then the total benefit dollars for each are on screen. We're coming into the home stretch. Scheduled loss of use claims, or SLUs. They're payable when a worker suffers a permanent loss of use in a limb. Each item has, or each body part, I should say, has a different benefit amount. We are also including hearing loss and vision loss in this grouping. On screen, you can see the top 5 body sites. And for those of us watching at home, each finger and toe has its own benefit amount and therefore would be in its own category. SLUs, scheduled loss of use, are our 3rd largest volume of claims by type today, just under the 2 temporary categories. Also, only temp totals have a higher rate of claims that receive benefits without hearing. And only, again, temp totals have fewer hearings per claim. The SLUs have an average controversy rate, and more than 9 in 10 of these claims have legal representation. Compared to our other claim types, SLUs are on the lower end of these claim events. Their average number of PARs and IMEs are appreciably lower than other categories. And average benefit cost in dollars now, the indemnity is about 10% more than the treatment costs for these permanent injuries. But this right here is definitely the closest ratio we have amongst the claims we're looking at today. Claims may be permanently closed by Section 32 waiver agreements. These provide lump sum payment to injured workers in exchange for permanently closing the indemnity or the medical benefits, or both. It's entirely a result of what the worker and the payer agree to do. This detailed chart here continues our presentation method today because it contains the type of claim that resulted from the injuries on the far left, and then some financial information. We combined temp total and temp partial into that first line, by the way. The largest settlement amounts were paid in fatality claims. And then second most was permanent total disability claims. These settlements almost always involved attorney representation for the workers. The bottom line in yellow, that's the average of all of the Section 32s. The approved amount, the total is the medical plus indemnity. So that middle column is medical plus indemnity. And the average was $70,309. Less than 1 in 5 Section 32 waiver agreements left the medical open. Nearly all closed the indemnity as well. We'll see on average 6.5 years will pass from the date of the injury to the finalization of the Section 32 waiver agreement paperwork. And then on average, these agreements are finalized by the board 67 days from when we receive the final correct C-32 document. And the community certainly seems to understand the workflow and what's required here, because only 1% of Section 32 waiver agreements have been disallowed over the past 10 years. Finally, the fatality claim. So to editorialize for just one moment, if I may, I hope that the entire community agrees that in this instance, we must all extend every human courtesy and consideration to bereaved families. Thank you. Here is some data on the 151 fatality claims that were established last year. Nearly 9 in 10 had hearings, for an average of nearly 5 hearings each. Nearly 9 in 10 of the beneficiaries were represented, and nearly 2/3 of fatality claims were controverted. Here are the industries with the most established fatality claims. These are the standard categories used by federal agencies here. So please note that the public administration category, the second one, that refers to federal, state, and local government agencies that manage and oversee and administer public programs and services. This listing here, the top 10, represents more than 8 out of 10 fatality claims. The chair felt that the participants in our system and the board expend enough resources on controverted claims that it's helpful to just take the controversy rate off of each of our detailed slides and present it here as a group. And that is possible, of course, for any of these data points. We could easily do that. In 2023, the general controversy rate was 11% based on a current analysis. Technically, it's 10.89, so rounded to 11. The temp totals were under that rate. You can see on screen. The temp partials and the SLUs were at that rate. So that right away is 78% of all the claims we looked at today. PPDs were initially controverted a bit more frequently than the average. Section 32's experienced a controversy rate of 1 in 5. Nearly a quarter of the permanent totals were controverted during their life cycle, and nearly 2 in 3 of the fatality claims that were established in 23 were initially controverted. Finally, our last slide here, what you may have been waiting for. Appeals by claim type. So now we're in your realm. For each of these claim types, we looked into the file for an RB89. And that means that these were appealed at some point in their life cycle. So here are the results of that review. Temp totals in Section 32s have the lowest appeal rates at 5% each. Temp partials and SLUs come next, a bit higher, but under 10%. The rates change for the PPDs, the permanent partials. About a third of those are appealed at some point during their life cycle. 61% of the permanent totals were appealed at some point during their life cycle. That's our highest rate. And then finally, those fatalities, 40% of those were appealed at some point during their life cycle. That is probably a quick pace, but that is the claim detail that I had to report to everyone. Thank you all for your attention and support.
Thank you so much, Joe. We appreciate the presentation and the claim detail. And with that, board members, may I please have a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I second that.
Thank you. Board members, any opposition to the motion? Okay, hearing none. Board members all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, I am also a yes. That motion is passed. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.